Hi, this is Carol from Skill Check. Today we're going to be talking about maybe not everyone's favorite topic, but when is it time to terminate an employee? And one of the things that's sort of my motto is hire slow and fire fast. So that's what we'll be talking about. Let's start out with the idea of the at-will employment. The United States have separate and individual employment laws by state. So I'm going to just recommend that you should find out whether you're an at-will employment state or not, and that will help you when you're terminating an employee for any reason. So, however, we do have, there are some things that you can do wrong and you can get rid of someone because of a discriminatory thing. It might be some issue of their gender, their race, or religion. You want to be careful about that because you shouldn't be terminating someone for those reasons. Really, it should be based on their actual performance at the job. The other thing is contracts in at-will states between the employer and employees. They really do help prevent any kind of problems or claims. So it's a good idea to have an employment agreement when you first go in and hire someone. You should do that. And I think in every self-storage opportunity you have to do that, you should do that right away. And you can do it even like, let's say you've gone all these years and you don't have one. It doesn't hurt to have one, and you can tell the employees, hey, we saw this thing and it said we should have an employment agreement, so here it is. But this law doesn't just apply to employers, though. In an at-will employment states, the employees can also quit their jobs or go on strike, and that's just what basically the at-will employment says, that if they could, we don't have a union in self-storage, so there's really no striking. They just leave us and move on. So, but remember, there are all types of terminations, and it's not always the one that you create, because there are voluntary terminations. More than likely, yours, if you are terminating someone, that would be an involuntary for the employee. But it could be death. You terminate them because they passed away, or maybe they've retired or laid off, or there's no longer there. You only had a certain contractual time, and for sure, position abandonment. I know during COVID, I was doing work with a bunch of different companies, and one in particular said these people just didn't show up, never showed up to work again. No excuse, no call, nothing. And that just amazes me to no end because it just seems weird. So you want to be careful. These implied contracts could be invoked if you or the person serving as the employee supervisor say something. Don't worry, your job is always secure. We're like a family. We never fire anyone. You want to be careful about things like that. You don't want to say something that is not true. And implied covenants of good faith in fair dealing could apply if an employer were to fire a salesperson just before their bonus happens. And that, I can tell you, on occasion, having a management company, the owner's like, well, fire them before the quarter because then we have to pay them their bonus. I'm like, well, we're going to have to pay bonus anyway. So you shouldn't worry about that when you're firing someone. So be careful. The other red flags, I'm going to just talk about red flags of when would be a time where you may think, this person needs to go. They may be using petty cash for personal purchases. And for example, I've had managers that have bought dog food and ice cream. Pantyhose is another one. I've had a few other things where I'm like, no. So whoever is looking through the petty cash, they need to look through each and every item that's purchased because they think that you're not really looking. And sometimes they put something through just to see if you'll notice. And if you don't ever notice it, then they start doing more and more. The other thing are side hustles, renting a space, but it shows unrentable or in a maintenance status in the software. I call those mystery spaces because basically we don't know who's in it, but there's clearly a customer's lock on it. That's probably not as common now as it used to be in the past, where we weren't really active, and maybe that's prevalent for owners that don't actually go and look in their property and see what's going on. The other one is the return of purchased items for cash, and that would be like printer toners. That's one that I've had, and garden hoses. I know it seems like you're probably like, wait a minute, could someone really return a garden hose? Yeah, I had a maintenance van that was stealing, and I noticed that they had purchased several hoses, and I thought, wow, these are big, heavy duty, very expensive hoses from Ace Hardware. They're like 80 something dollars. So I went the office was just around on the other side from, I had an office at the storage place. So I went around the corner, I lifted up the maintenance unit, I'm looking in there, and there was the oldest, uh, I don't know, probably maybe the oldest hose I've ever seen. And it didn't even on the end, it had been cut off. So it was a crappy hose for sure. And then I'm thinking, okay, so I walk into the manager and I said, so I noticed you bought a couple of hoses lately, yet the only thing you have out there is an old crappy hose. And the manager's like, what are you talking about? She said, we hardly ever even use a hose. Why would I have bought two hoses? And I said, well, and I showed her the information that I had from Ace Hardware that they were purchased and then returned. And she said, well, I don't even have that card that you're talking about. And because we had a Ace Hardware card, and she said that the maintenance man had it. And I thought, oh my gosh, the maintenance man was going into Ace Hardware and returning the hose saying, oh, we didn't need it or didn't use it or whatever. And he got cash back instead of putting the credit back on our card. So I thought that was really bad. So other things, telling customers that they must pay cash for a lock removal or staying in late, something like that, and they require cash. I know I went to a storage property where I had helped the owner get his rental agreement and stuff. He had a new manager in there, and I had left my key to the lock, and I had to get the manager to lock or cut off the lock. And it was a new person, so he came out and he did the grinder and he got the thing off. So I called the owner up and I said, hey, would you do me a favor? Would you look in SiteLink this evening? The manager said that I had to pay the $15 charge to cut off the lock in cash. And I thought that was a little weird. And he said, oh, you went in there today? I said, yeah, just look. Or I can look for you if you give me your codes again, because I forgot what his codes were. And he said, no, I'll look and I'll call you back. And he calls me back and he goes, no, there was no $15 cash thing anywhere. And I said, well, then your manager's taking money from you because I gave him $15 to cut off the lock. So you have to watch for things like that, and think other things like selling boxes or product and that they don't actually enter into the software. I always mark up the products 100%. That way I'll know and I'll be able to track to see if they've actually were having any slippage or loss of product. So, and sometimes they give away a lock or something, but I do ask them to put in their free lock for, whatever reason. Also, the cash deposits that could be held because cash is missing or even been repaid, they borrow it a little bit. So Monday's deposit might have had $2,000 in it, and yet Wednesday's deposit went in before Monday's. And I'm okay, so Mondays didn't go until Friday. I'm thinking, wait a minute, Wednesdays went in, so why wouldn't they have taken Mondays at the same time? Well, I look and there was like $2,000 in cash on Monday, and they loaned themselves the money until they could repay it when they got their pay. So you have to be very careful about that. And I consider that stealing. I know that some people don't. Like, well, the manager said, well, we were just borrowing it and we were paying it back. But if they had asked, I would have given some kind of upfront payment or something for them, but they didn't. So they didn't have long at that property until I could find another job. Deceptive and odd behavior. There are other things too you should really watch for. Customer complaints, problems with just, normal customers. And I know that, not all customers are the same, but if you feel like there's a sense of normalcy to this customer and then they tell you different things, I would start investigating it. And you don't have to go tell the manager, just go for yourself. See for yourself what's going on. The store not open during office hours, and this is kind of a good idea of the normal customer issue. And I can give you an example of this, and some of you may have heard this story before, but I'd staked out one of my stores in Daly City, California. That's near San Francisco. And this guy he was a frequent customer, or he'd been there a long time and he was on the property a lot. He had a business, and he called and he said, these people are not in the office, and it's so frustrating. And so I was like, okay, well, so I stake it out and I'm watching. And in the morning when they're supposed to open up, they both came down. I could see them in the office. They came from the upstairs in their office, but I didn't see that part. But I saw them put the open sign up. And so then they walked out. But when they walked out to the car, they both got in the same car. But she was wearing a uniform, like a waitress uniform. And I'm like, what the heck? And so he takes her. Now she doesn't drive, so he had to drive her to her work. He drives her there and he drops her off and he comes back and he works the store. So the customer was correct. But the weird thing about this is like when I, addressed this to them, they're like, oh, well, wasn't very busy. So, she got a job during the morning. Well, that's deceptive. That's not right. And I wouldn't have ever known had that customer said, something was wrong. And I like this one, closed due to circumstances beyond our control. That would be what these people should have been putting up. Yeah, we needed another job to get more money. So, but think about those things because you want to make sure that, you're not a store that obviously is not open during the hours, overlocks and not put on delinquent customer spaces, the overlocks not being removed after late customers have paid, deposits with cash that are not going into the bank daily. Those are all things to watch. There's other type of deceptive behavior. Incompetence, that could be it. I mean, I've certainly have seen people that are just not good at handling the computer and they have problems. Poor quality of work or productivity, insubordination, breaking company rules or policies. I know I had a manager, I stopped by the store after I'd done some auctions. And when I got there, there was a note on the door, be back in 10 minutes. And so I waited and waited and I waited a long time, over an hour, and still not there, still not there. And I was calling the office saying, hey, who's supposed to be working today because nobody's here. And I normally have keys for all the stores, but I didn't because I was doing the auction. I didn't even think about bringing the keys. And anyway, the guy shows up. And when I go into the office, I look to see if he had punched out and he didn't. He hadn't even punched out. And he's like, oh, I forgot to punch out. I'm like, that's a bunch of crap. That was bull. So I really have tried to watch, people moving in, punching in and punching out properly. So it's important to know. So those attendance issues, also just that, again, theft and the audit inconsistencies, the income or sales product slippage, that's, and again, you see this girl, she's putting stuff right in there. I had a storage property where the assistant manager was walking back and forth behind, and the assistant manager put the stuff from the customers, and she put 120 in the till and she put another 20 down in her purse that was down below the desk. So it certainly can happen pretty easily, even with the manager there. The other thing is physical violence or threatening against the employees or the customers. I've had both. I've had customers threaten my managers. I've had managers threaten the customers. That just can't fly. You want to be very careful about things like that. Also, the sexual harassment or discriminatory behavior from employees. You should fire someone if they do something bad like that. And I've had several cases of that over years. I've had to get someone for sexually harassing someone else. And honestly, I think the guy thought that he was just picking on this girl for no particular reason other than he was a jokester, but she didn't like it. And it got worse and worse where it was bad. And I had to do something about it. And I did. Multiple problems with normal customers. That, normal customers, I'm wondering about that. I do think we have normal customers, but you really want to make sure when normal customers are telling you something, you listen to the complaint. And I know there's some weirdos out there. Just be careful about that. But if they say, hey, no one's in the office, don't just think, oh, the man, and you call the manager and like, oh, I was out on the property. But if the customer says, I went back there 3 times or whatever they say to you, I might believe it. Especially after a while when you think, that seems weird. But have a way for that customer to get in contact with the owner or the management without going through the store employees. That's so important. And you really need to monitor and follow up those customer reviews. Also, if you see customer reviews out there and they're weird, like, yeah, I tried, 5 times to get in the gate, I couldn't get in. But these disgruntled customers may be telling the truth. And you can't just, respond to a bad review and not follow up with it. You need to absolutely follow up with bad things just to see for yourself what really happened. And I like to do that before I do a review too. If you notice, here's a sign that I put on my stores. If you're happy with this, tell a friend. If not, call this number. And I put my 800 number on there so customers, if something's wrong, they can call us. Termination of employees, you do have to have a game plan and a checklist for terminations. It's super important. And when you think about this, using performance improvement plan or not, you need to start coaching and communicating. It's really imperative that you do that so you don't blindside the employee that there's a problem. I know with our mystery shopping, because we do a lot of mystery shopping at Skill Check, and sometimes the managers will say, well, I didn't know I was doing bad at selling. Well, with the mystery shopping, consistently every month are they doing well or not well? And those people that are consistently under whatever your number is, I think that you should you counsel with them and talk with them, communicate that you have to get better at your selling skills or there's a problem. However, remember, documenting each step in this process is really difficult, but again, you really need to do it. Employee, for example, like employee no calls, no shows, if that happens, you need to put that in their file so something is documented that this is when it happened and what happened. So you don't find yourself at the very end saying, oh, well, they missed all these days. Well, how many days? How many days was that? You want to be accurate about all of that information. The employee theft should be an immediate termination of the employee. There should not be an option. And I can tell you that's probably happened more than once if it's the time you caught it. I know I had a termination that happened in my office from a person that was doing my accounting. And when I found it, I looked back months and she'd been, I was approving things with her insurance for her daughter in there. And then later on, she would actually take it out before she did the payment. So she would make an extra $90 something per month, which seems kind of ridiculous, or thinking you wouldn't lose a job over that. But she was doing it. And so she went out of my office in handcuffs. I have a termination checklist. I think this is really important. If you would like one of these, you can email us or call us and we can get you one of these, send it to you, because I think you need, and you can add your own things onto here, but I like to get the office keys back, identifying the tools, the equipment, appliances, anything petty cash, making sure you check all of these things, the safety manual, everything's there, the keys to the golf cart, the desks, everything that you might think of. And you can add on to this and make it your own specifically for your stores. The other thing, do you need a witness? Well, sometimes I've done this by myself, and other times I've taken someone with me. Sometimes I've taken some muscle, in fact. I wasn't sure how that was going to go. And I don't know, I've told this story before, but some of these termination cases go in a bad way. And it doesn't really hurt to have someone there with you. I also like to take someone with me that can run the store while I'm doing what I have to do. So the person you take, though, they should be able to run the store, right? You try to make sure that because if you're doing the actual termination, you want to take that out of the office area or into a back room, whatever, where you can talk privately with the manager. And you may be scared of the employee's reaction, what they're going to do. Be careful about that. I did have a termination that I was doing years ago, but I went in and I told them that there was some discrepancies in their petty cash, and so the husband of the two, he said, just a minute, and he goes upstairs and he's up there a while. I was like, wow, what the heck am I waiting for here? Because it was, the wife was nervous and stuff. And so I kind of just kept on doing some work, and he came down in his full military uniform. And he said, now you tell me that I've been stealing. And I said, well, I didn't say you had been taking money. The only thing that I know is your wife had her initials, or she was working when all this money was missing. And boy, it was very, very strange. The next day, when I got back to the store, I had put locks on the office and everything. I've gone through that whole process, so they couldn't get into the office. But when I went into when I got into the office that morning, the keys for the manager's apartment were through the mailbox little slot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they already gave me the keys. So I thought, well, they must have moved out. I was like, Eureka, woohoo, they've already moved out. I don't have to deal with them moving out and angry and throwing things around and being all angry. But anyway, I got in there and I looked and there was blood on the walls. It was a mess. So I called the police. And the whole idea of this is, you know what? I now believe, have someone there with you. Be prepared with another set of managers or another new people to take over, because none of this is easy. And you may be scared of their reaction, then you should have two people there. And again, that could be someone from the main office, but it should be, you've got to have, I would say, two people there would be a good idea. And don't get mad, don't get angry. Try never to get angry at what's going on, because then you could potentially be hurt and it's not worth that. The other thing that you should do when terminating employees, I would not write it on there like that. I will tell you, Sue Haviland, I love Sue. She was telling me one time that this guy was drunk at the store and he was passed out. And so she got him up and called a cab, and she gave the address of his home to the cab driver, paid for the fare, I guess, and then she put a little note on his shirt that said, "You're fired." I was like, oh, Sue, you can't make up that kind of stuff. That is so awesome. Not really awesome, but it's just the weirdness of self-storage and how strange this all can be. But you want to remember, immediately remove them from the computer and that information access. You want to make sure that you know that this is final. That person, when you're talking to them, they're like, well, can't I have another chance? Or won't you give it? Don't do that. Once you've already said it, you should just finish it and let it go. Try to end on a high note also. Just say, well, thank you so much for your time. And they may be mad at you, but still try not to be hateful and angry about it. And only fire face to face. Don't fire someone over the phone. It's hurtful. It's hard to do. You never quite get now. And again, I have terminated people over the phone because I had to. I didn't have a whole lot. But if you have an option, do it face to face. And don't forget to have their final pay ready. All of the pay that they are owed, I have that right there with me. And I'm just saying it's sort of over. I need your keys, and have that checklist and just start right on that checklist. And so it just, they don't have a whole lot of time to think or cry or anything else. But keep in mind that, they may go to social media to complain, but you just have to just put up with that. I would prefer people not do that, but sometimes they're hateful and they do things bad, even though they don't tell what they did. But again, this whole process of firing is not easy. And I just think that it's something that you need to practice. I know it's not very easy to practice, but I will tell you, I know when I get in the car to go do this kind of thing, I go over it and over it. I'm like, oh, that's not good. Oh, I'm going to tell it, because I want to tell them, based on what they did, la, la, la. And I just say it to myself over and over. So practice before you get there. Try to just say, we've made a decision and we'd like to change out managers, something like that. You don't have to go into big detail of everything that they've ever done wrong, or yeah, it's hard to do sometimes. Well, thank you so much for watching. Again, this is Carol from Skill Check. If you want to get a hold of me at 800-374-7545 or carol@skillcheck.com if you have questions. And please click subscribe to our YouTube channel, because I'm still trying to get lots of K's behind something. I see some of these people that are bad singers or rappers and stuff, and they have millions of people that watch them, and I just laugh like, oh yeah, woohoo, I'm up to 900. I get all excited if I get that many. But thank you so much for listening, and I'd love to have any recommendations. If you would like some kind of topic, let me know. And thank you, and happy renting.